Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by BetMGM, the king of sportsbooks. My name's Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, joined by Mike Fiddle, and this is Buckets Live after the Indiana Pacers lost game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. The Celtics did not win game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. The Pacers lost game one of the Eastern Conference Finals. We'll react here live to the game two line, how to kind of read that. We'll talk about the series price. We'll get into the Western Conference Finals. We'll break it all down here on Buckets Live. Thanks for joining us. Hit us in the chat. Are you more confident in the Celtics or the Pacers in this series after game one? Tell us the best bet. If you got one, there's an angle you want to bet, hit us with it in the chat. Glad to have you with us. What a game. What a game. Fiddle was like so confident in Celtics. I was like, all right, they're going to roll them out, get off to this big start. And I was like, all right, here we go. Like, okay, I could just kind of take tonight easy. And then we can start working on how to bet Pacers in game two. Like that was like the whole thing. And then the Pacers just hung around. Just like hung around, would not go away, answered back every single time. Have a lead in the fourth quarter. Have a lead with like 30 seconds to go.
This looked like such an easy start for Celtics backers. A 12-0 run. It seemed like it was going to be a sweat-free Tuesday. We are going to cruise to our Celtics -9, -9.5, play into the fact that no playoff games. The Celtics have had one playoff game so far be within a 10-point discrepancy. This is number 2 now. Both of them come from what feels like really bad beats if you're on the Celtics ATS. I'm glad you say the Celtics didn't win this game. The Pacers lost, because Matt, you're often the one that says, are we really just going to give credit to no one? Like someone deserves some credit. The Pacers were just so sloppy all game. It was multiple 3 seconds in the keys. They won the offensive rebound battle, yet they're throwing inbounds passes out of bounds. The Celtics felt like there was probably 8 or 9 times they were one possession away from blowing it to a 15, 16, 18-point game and just putting it out of reach. And yet every time it's a Miles Turner step back, side shuffle 3. It's a Nembhard where he's shooting like he looks like Sean Marion, the Matrix back in the day with that weird release. It was incredible. Halliburton shooting from damn near the logo. I watched every second and the whole time felt like I really don't know what I'm watching right now.
I mean, look, it's just weird because like I kind of view it differently. I don't think this was luck. Like the Pacers did what they do. And like this is one of the things that I have kind of noticed about them. They are largely unfazable. And I don't mean that in terms of like they're always going to kind of be in games. They're not like the Heat, right? Because like they get blitzed in game 5 of the Knicks series. Like you could definitely rattle them and run them out. But they have the memory of goldfish.
Yep.
They're just like, whatever. We're just going to go we're just going to run up and down the floor and score. Like that's just what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and go up here. The Pacers were sloppy, but Fiddle, like they're coming off of a game 7. They're in their first conference finals. So many of these guys have never been in the playoffs before. And like, that doesn't excuse it in terms of like, you got to execute to win, right? You got to be better than that. But I am very much like, I can forgive that in the context of who the Pacers are. What I can't forgive is the Boston Celtics having to pull off a game from betwixt the cheeks to find a way to win this game. A desperation, heavily contested Jaylen Brown 3 off of a random sequence of turnovers in a game in which in the first half, the Indiana Pacers shot 3 free throws. The gap at one point was 25-3. That would have been the least free throws for any team in conference finals history had it stayed in regulation. By half. The second most was Miami team. A Miami team with 6. That's insane.
It was nuts.
And for the Celtics, I'm sorry, for the Celtics to need that to win this game when this is like the perfect spot for you. That's why we all bet you. Like this is the spot where you kill them. Double-digit home favorites, racing a team off of game 7. And yet they're going to get away with it. Fiddle, like they're going to get away with it. They're going to beat the charges. And it's not frustrating. Like congrats to them for just having every single thing go their way. Like, I didn't bet Pacers tonight. This isn't me being mad about a bet. I'm just baffled that the way this game played out and what it required for Boston to beat the 6th seed coming off a game 7 in the sweetest spot imaginable. And yet I don't think that we should react by being like, let's fade the Celtics.
No, definitely not. We definitely need to get into that for game 2. Let me give you 2 quick questions for game 1, Matt. Do the like is the shooting sustainable for the Pacers for a third game? Ultimately, it has to die down at some point, right? Ultimately, we have to look at them shooting 50% from 3 through the first half. They were 8 of 15 in the first half. The Celtics were 7 of 23. They had made one more make on 8 less shot attempts. It was crazy. So it was a shooting variance game early, and that's why the Pacers were able to stay in it. If they're not shooting like that, all else goes out the window for this team. The only reason why they were able to keep it close, let alone a ton of just crazy sequence moments, was a lot of the shooting variant stuff. So that was very interesting for me to see how the books would react to that in terms of pricing game 2. And then not fouling with Pascal Siakam, to not foul Jaylen Brown there. This is like the 3rd time this playoffs where the Pacers have done that, where they've foregone fouling the wet wall up 3 points in a late game situation. And then in overtime, Joe Mazzulla's rubbing salt in the wound, fouling while up 6, playing the math game, even in that regard, not letting them get off a 3. I think we need to look back, and we've been praising Rick Carlisle a lot, but I think we need to look back and be like, this is at the point where it's like, bonehead, you absolutely have to foul. And my question for you is, am I crazy there? Because Jaylen Brown was at the 3. So if you go to initiate the foul, are you potentially giving up the 4-point play in that situation, or you still need to put hands on him?
He got a look where he inbounded and he was facing the basket. And there's just like absolutely, there's such a high probability that you foul and he hits it. It really is. Like, you need to do a better job of containing on the inbound, which the Pacers are never going to do because they're not a good defensive team, right? So, like, they just wind up like allowing the sequence to happen. You can try and like tackle him there, but then like it winds up being like a random sequence, and maybe the officials go crazy. I just kind of feel like no matter what was going to happen, that was going to, like, that game was like always going to go to overtime, because like I don't even have explanations for like the Halliburton turnover. It's not like Halliburton was like, on the one where he just lost the ball out of bounds. Like the Jaylen Brown one, okay, or the Drew Holiday one, okay, like good defense, but like in general, that was just like nonsensical. It was just like, what's happening? And maybe they were just like distracted by the crowd and too pumped up by the moment. Maybe that's what it was. I didn't look at it that way. It's not what it looked like to me. It looks like he just lost the ball. But like, this is one of those where it just seems like, man, the basketball gods were like, no, Boston's winning this game. Like, no more Pacers. That's like what the basketball gods did tonight. Chris Hild says, why are you so mad after watching a basketball game in the chat? Chris, it's
Did
not
we
that
watch a
bad.
basketball game?
I'm trying to, I don't know if that was a basketball game. I'm trying to, I think that my frustration is like trying to understand, like, how do you accurately kind of assess the Celtics? Because I'll tell you, I came to the conclusion today the Boston Celtics are winning the title, because if you listen to Bucket's Western Conference Finals preview, I like the Mavericks, and I think the Celtics will beat the Mavericks in short order. And so it's like, I think they're going to win the title. And yet it's like, I just have never seen a team get this many breaks in a sequence before. Like, absolutely insane. Like, that's a wild sequence that they got to in order to win this game.
Yeah, it felt like the Celtics have the clearest path, whether it's teams that they're going up against, whether it be the injuries falling to them, whether that be the conference that they're in, whether that be Denver even losing in the Western Conference second round. And now, like, we'll talk about Mavericks and Wolves in a little bit, but this might be like a whole playoffs of this at this point, Matt. We should start talking about betting prices, but I feel like this is not the last time we're going to have this kind of sentiment in these playoffs.
Okay, so the off of game 7 trend failed, as so many trends have failed in these playoffs, right? So I don't even know if I want to list this, but teams that have actually come off of game 7 and then lost game 1 have done pretty well in the second game, because there's kind of this bounce back effect We've seen the market already open at 9 when this closed 10. What's kind of your read on where the market is at for game 2 very, very early on, immediately in the aftermath?
So this has been happening a bunch with Celtics lines specifically, Matt. There's been early steam coming in the other direction, always on the opposing team. Probably people just grabbing the points and saying, I'll take a big number now and work off of it in the other direction. There's a lot of shooting variance that goes into this. So there are going to be those swings in the game where you just want to grab points early. And if you can get close to 10 points, you could probably have value to work off it. So that's why I think early money comes in on the opponent. However, consistently late steam on Celtics. So I do think we are going to see it again. I do think it closes at least back at 10 or 10.5, Matt. I don't think this is going to close. It's currently at DraftKings at 8.5. I already bet the 9 and it dipped back to 8.5. Normally, I don't go back in the waters after being on the wrong side of some initial movement, but I feel very confident we are going to see this steam the other direction in the coming days. So we have 48 hours until the next tip. I think we are going to get another 2 points of movement on the Boston Celtics side. It felt like, again, the Pacers, for me, when I watched this game, are too sloppy. They have too many little mental lapses where they get beat in transition off of a make. When they, and I felt like they made too many hard shots, too many difficult looks just dropped for them, that ultimately I think this is a potential smash spot for the Celtics. However, with that being said, I was on the Cavaliers for game 2, and we know Miami won game 2. And this is the time when rest and travel becomes neutralized. So we played into the game 7. You're going to be not rested. The Celtics finished game 5 at home and have been waiting for this series, watching the Knicks and Pacers battle it out. Now those advantages are a bit neutralized. 48 hours between the games. Neither team has to travel. The Pacers don't find themselves situationally in as bad of a spot. And we've seen sharps and some betting groups play against the Celtics late in these spots. I don't think it happens because we're seeing it happen early, Matt. I think it's simply happening in reverse. And I think we're going to see overall the same pattern of line movement, which means a little bit of steam early and then late Celtics movement coming.
I will take the Pacers then. I will wait because here's a trend for you. I'll tell you the trend right after I tell you about BetMGM. Check Slack real quick, Michael. Buckets is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get $1,500 back in bonus bets if your first bet does not win. For new users in Arizona, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Maryland, Massachusetts, Michigan, New Jersey, Ohio, Pennsylvania, Tennessee, Virginia, West Virginia, and Wyoming. Bonus code ACTION will give new users in North Carolina $150 in bonus bets for betting just $5. Terms and conditions apply. Must be 21 or over. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, here's the trend. And look, I bet these trends in these playoffs and I've gotten burned time after time. It's been really rough. If you're somebody that's like, hey, this is how these games typically go, these NBA playoffs have been like, fuck you and your trends. But this is a wild one. This is even better than I thought. Okay, so I looked at, you played a game 7, right? You're on the road, okay? You lost the last game, but you covered the last game, right? How does that kind of look? And it is surprisingly actually pretty positive for the road team. And so that's one I think that should probably be considered here. I'll look up the numbers specifically here in a second. The series price on this has now gone to, there's a 11-1 on the Pacers in the market. It's 10-1 currently at BetMGM, the king of sports books. And so you've got this, obviously a reaction. It's 1 of 4. They've got it. I don't know what to do here, in part because I argued with Brandon Anderson about hey, I'm going to bet Pacers plus 2.5 after they lose game 1 because I think they can take 2 off of them. But I just feel I lost such a coin flip game that the Pacers should have won. I always said, the Celtics are going to give you one just by screwing around and being the Celtics, and the Pacers can win one by playing really well, and the Pacers can win one with shot variance. And it's whether those things overlap or not is whether it's 2 games or 1 game. And I feel we got maybe 2 of those in this game.
I was
So
going to say
now I'm kind
tonight
of
feels like one of those games. We have
right,
to count it kind of as one of those games.
but on the other hand, again, we talk about like they're goldfish. Like I don't feel like the Pacers are going to carry this through the rest of the series. They might lose game 2 by a billion. But I'm just like really curious about like how to kind of cap this, given that we know we think the Celtics are going to probably take sharp money and move in that direction, and there's a good chance overall that this goes that you're able to get a better price on the Pacers in game 2, and the Pacers shouldn't have been in this game, and yet they should have won. They should have won this game. What do you do here?
Definitely should have won. They shouldn't have inbounded the turnover, and then they should have fouled the shooter on the next play. They definitely should have won. I kind of agree with you, Matt. They're not going to remember this game, and it's not going to be like a kind of kick in the chest that totally disheartens them moving forward. Rick Carlisle's been preaching to them, we're the uninvited. And so I think that's going to linger going into game 2, and they're going to come out with some fight. However, I just continue to see this as a Celtics spot developing. I think an available 8.5 is a little bit of a discount right now. And then as we look to the total, the books that opened 2 different spots, which I think is important to note. You can't really react to early movement that we're seeing, Matt, because if one book opens 2 points higher, they're immediately going to start taking under money. And then the book that opens 2 points lower is immediately going to start taking over money. So if you're looking at the two, they're just going to start to meet in a consensus at the middle, which they already have. And now we can start to begin to read which way does this go. I had a really strong feeling, and I talk about this often, that I think you can cap a future game more based on watching what happens in the line movement before it even tips off than what happens during the game. And going into this game 1, Matt, I thought there were such loud signals from the market that the total was so well priced at 222 because it opened at 223.5 and it dropped to about 220, and then it was at 220 and it moved back up and settled at 222. So for me, when you see that kind of movement, when it goes up, when it goes down, and we're going to talk about not seeing this movement in Mavericks Wolves in a second, but when you see that kind of movement, smart bettors are on both sides, and then it's met its middle point and you're like, okay, that's where it's supposed to be. So then whatever was going to happen in game 1, my reaction was, play it in the direction back to the original 222, because that's where people have said over 90 games worth of sample size at this point, that's where the number should be, and nothing that could happen in a one-off sample size should be able to change that. And then I watch this game and I feel like I don't know if I could still feel that way because the pace was so quick. Their ability for both teams to get to the rim was at will when they wanted to get there. They're both going to be reliant on a heavy 3-point diet, and the game flows so fast. So even though the total opened higher than the 222, I still felt like it was probably an over spot for game 2.
Yeah, I mean, look, I don't think that there was a lot of conversation about like, man, the Celtics can get whatever they want. The Celtics can get whatever they want, but they don't take it. The Pacers got whatever they wanted. Like the Celtics' #1 defense was like carved up by this Pacers team. They looked completely comfortable throughout the majority of this game. They were never really uncomfortable outside of the first 5 minutes. And that feels like it's promising for them. So like Pacers plus 2.5 is plus 165 on the series spread line. And like, again, I don't know how to really process this because I don't know how to take it from the perspective of one of the wins that you should have gotten for the plus 2.5 was probably this one, because otherwise it's like, hey, this should have got like if you win this, if you win Pacers plus 2.5, that basically means the series should have gone at least 7, if not Pacers win.
Correct.
I don't know what to do with that. I don't even know what to do with that. So maybe you should just lay the juice with Celtics minus 2.5 minus 210, which is now what the price is at BetMGM.
Or if you like the Pacer side, simply take them money lines game 3 and 4, because if you're looking for them plus games in a series, that means they have to take one of those 2 games. So take them in both game 3. And if they win game 3, just pause it there. If they lose game 3 and this is still your mindset, play them each for half units on plus 200 money lines and do it that way and play them game 4 again.
Whew. All right. Tomorrow, the Western Conference Finals start off with the Minnesota Timberwolves taking on the Dallas Mavericks. We'll give you some best bets for that one really quick. Want to let you know that the WNBA season is right around the corner, and Buckets is spinning off our WNBA episodes to its own feed. So you can get Maria Marino and the rest of our WNBA crew, including Jim Turvey and Dana Mattia, doing their thing over there. The first episode is out. More are released every Tuesday and Friday as WNBA season is in full effect. They're killing it over on WNBA Buckets. So go check out. There's a link in the description to this episode to subscribe. So go check that out. All right. So Fiddle, tomorrow night, Mavericks versus Timberwolves. Wolves are a 4-point favorite in this one. There's a 4.5 in the market. The total on this game is up to 207, open 205 and a half. If we look at the sharp report on the Action Network Pro Tools, the Dallas Mavericks are getting sharp action here, but the majority of bets and tickets, 80% of the bets and 86% of the money is on the Wolves. So money's coming in on the Wolves, tickets are on the Wolves, but we're seeing sharp action, keeping this tampered down from 5. It's at 4.5 in the market. What's your best bet going into this big game one?
Best bet is Mavericks first quarter money line plus 125.
Okay, give me the cap.
I think this reflects a lot on what you and Brandon did a great breakdown of this series in a nice podcast that I listened to as I was walking my dog. And ultimately, you have the travel and rest disparity probably being a disadvantage towards the Timberwolves. They were in Denver for Game 7, despite being the home team. They are traveling home before this game, so they still have the travel spot. Dallas finished Game 6 at home, so they should be a little more rested for the flight up north, that they could get that done. It's not really a big travel disadvantage for the away team in this spot, which is one of those rare cases that you can play into because these lines are priced with home court advantage, but often home court carries travel for the other team. In this case, it carries travel for both teams. I think the way you're reading the series, Matt, is spot on, that there's some sharp action on the Mavericks, but I also think it's not much sharp action in either direction. So sometimes you've mentioned how many moves have been sharp. I'd wonder if that number is kind of on the lower end of what we're typically seeing, because this has never moved as low as 3.5 nor as high as 5. It has stayed between 4 and 4.5 in that sweet spot the entire time. So that means the books aren't taking such serious action that they need to kind of adjust the line and invite handle back the other direction. There's only one push number that the line has moved through, so there's nobody playing back opposite directions. And so what I'm really seeing this as, and what I'm going to predict, is this line is not going to last at 4. There is going to be something late that comes in on this. I tend to think it's Mavericks, and they're going to hope that it gets back to a 4.5, 5, and then boom, there's going to be a late hammer on the Mavericks. But it might be the Wolves. My approach to this game, I'm on Mavericks first quarter, but I also think you can just simply wait. And if you see this go to 5, grab a remaining 4.5. If you see this go to 3.5, grab a remaining 4 and play into the late movement, because the limits are about to open up tomorrow and big money is about to come in. So when that big money comes in, there might be a few bettors who know exactly what spot they want, but aren't doing it yet because they're not able to get enough money down. So once they are able to, wow, okay, now I want to ride with that person who's putting in that action. So I'm going to be looking for late movement and taking Mavericks plus money in the first quarter.
I like that. I like that angle a lot. In the chat, Renisha Brown says, game 1, the Celtics will cover. In game 2, it went reverse. Well, this is the Pacers' 3rd game on the road. Fade them. So actually, they said that. I decided to look it up. In the playoffs, in game 2, when you've been on the road this is your 3rd road game in a row. How about this? 8-23 straight up, 13-18, 42% ATS. So pretty good reason to go ahead and take the Boston Celtics there. I think I am going to bet Celtics after Fiddle's cap about where the money's going to go and those kind of things. I'm on Mavericks in this game. I have Mavericks money line and +4. I also have the over. I think this is going to be an offensive series. That debate you can hear about in the Buckets pod. So that's where you can find, as me and Brandon did a whole big breakdown, and I gave my cap on that game. But just real quickly, I do find that One, this is a really good spot with the Wolves coming off of game 7. I'm not going to get away from that trend. Like it didn't win tonight. I don't care. Like this is a good spot with the Wolves in an emotional letdown spot. I like all the matchups here for not all of them. I like many of the matchups for the Dallas Mavericks. And so I went ahead and played money line because it is inside. If it was more than 2 possessions, I might have just played spread. But at 4, I'll go ahead and I'll play the money line and the spread here at +4. And so that's kind of where I'll get to on that. Fiddle, next time that we do this, I got to get you. I need some help with some tickets that I have on various very big long shots of hedges that I've got on.
I've heard some of them, and they're beautiful tickets. So those will be exciting conversations.
Which I should be way more happy the Pacers lost tonight, given that I have no Pacers position whatsoever. I have no Pacers position, so I should be very happy that the Pacers did not steal this game because it would have caused a lot of mayhem.
Yeah, all of yours have Celtics to meet somebody in the finals.
Yeah, or Celtics.
Who's going to join them at the dance?
By the way, after game one, who's the conference finals MVP?
Jason Tatum.
Jaylen Brown. Come on, man. He's got like that clutch winner at the end. Jaylen was nails in this game. He was great in this game. Tatum finishes with a really great game of 36. But like
Tatum's taken steam already in the award.
But like I know, and he did score 10 points in clutch time. So maybe it is just Tatum. But boy, like it's just that fadeaway on the offensive rebound.
It was really dumb.
The turnover at half court, like these things should matter, but they're not going to matter. So that's how that's going to go. All right. That's going to do it for Buckets. Thanks for joining us. Appreciate you guys being with us. You can check us out in the podcast all throughout the week. We'll have best bets for game 2 tomorrow in the feed. So make sure to check that out. You can follow Fiddle on Twitter in the Action Network app at Fiddle's Picks. I'm at HP Basketball. And thanks to Tito for hanging out with us tonight and jinxing us into overtime. Great job, Tito. Excellent job getting those Celtics you love so much to win. We will talk to you guys again next time. We'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same bat channel after game 1 of the Western Conference Finals for Buckets Live. We'll see you then. Till next time, let's get buckets.